Well, welcome everyone. I am Neil Miller, your host of The Digital Workplace. We are trying something new today. We are doing some technology reviews of digital workplace apps. So I have two special guests with me today. To my right, maybe your left, this way, I guess, right? We have Vonda Page. Vonda is the CEO of Radical Change LLC. And we also below have Vijay Anand. He is the startup guy. How do you do to both you guys? How you doing?
I am doing great. Happy Tuesday. Glad to be here.
Yes, it is it's very special to be here. So Vonda specializes in change management, specifically with technology. Vonda, you want to give just a quick intro of yourself?
You got it. Thanks so much, Neil. So I just tell everybody that I'm an old school technologist. And
Mm,
I call myself an old school technologist because my first job in technology was learning, implementing, training on a fax machine. And that was in 1984. So ever since then, I was in 10th grade then. But so ever since then, I have had a myriad of different roles in all types of companies. From technology standpoint in terms of helping companies on board to brand new systems, whether you're talking about Microsoft Office, Salesforce, SAP, and then all of the transitions that go with that. And so I'm super excited to talk about Kintone and other apps that we're going to be talking about over the foreseeable future.
yeah, and so Vonda's going to bring the perspective of what does this look like with like enterprise adoption or implementation? What does it look like to actually roll this out with a big organization? Vijay, tell us a little bit about yourself. What brings you here?
So I've been working with early stage startups predominantly for the last 14 odd years, working mostly on a strategic and process oriented roles, helping companies to basically scale on, that long term growth and that exponential growth that essentially makes startups what they are. I do invest a fair bit of time in ecosystem building and things like that, but from the perspective of what we're doing today here, my viewpoint is going to be on how do startups basically find these things useful.
Yeah, and you are what I like about you is your ability to like see through the hype. Like if there's a lot of hype around something, like you're able to kind of like see past that and understand what's going on. So Vijay's going to bring that perspective. I'm coming in kind of as a person who I'm not a technologist, but I like to use these tools and like to build things more of that kind of citizen developer type role of I want to be able to do stuff, make teams work, and across boundaries and in remote settings too. So what we're doing today is we're going to look at a series of tools. We're going to start with one called Kintone, but what we're doing is looking at what we call a digital workplace as a tool. And just to give some context around that, the way we want to define that is if you're going to shift your headquarters from a physical location to a digital one, you need a platform that is going to be able to handle how you collaborate with each other, how you handle work management and various types of work management. So not just project management, but also some processes that are involved in there, maybe some ad hoc things that happen. You want to be able to store a lot of data and basically have that be your source of truth that it comes through. So we're trying to start with apps and platforms that we think may be able to handle that and give you our honest review and our honest feedback as it goes through. So as we've kind of alluded to, our first app that we're looking at is called Kintone. So I'm going to share their website because it was really their website that led us to feel like maybe they were going to be a good option here. So there's everybody's picture. All right, so Kintone says, built for teamwork, designed by you, an all-in-one workplace platform that allows highly collaborative teams to build, share, and automate custom workflows and processes for data-driven results. So it sounds pretty comprehensive. We got both the collaboration in there. We also have the workflows. We have data-driven results that are going through. It says it's got 20,000 plus customers. After doing a little bit of research, we realized that it's based in Japan, was originally built by a Japanese company. And so that's where their major user base is, but have since expanded worldwide. Let's see. They launched in 2011. So they've been around for a while. I think this implementation we see is a little bit newer. They do have a nice free trial that we've been using for about a month. You get full access to everything. So that's been nice to have for that. Pricing starts at about $24 per user per month. So I would say a little bit on the expensive side, specifically if you have a larger team and you want to roll this out. So it's built to be like your one tool that you're going to use. So if it's going to be priced at that way, that's where it wants to sit. So that's a little bit of an introduction. We have a platform here that we just did some basic things around to play around with it. I'm going to turn over to Vonda first, though, to kind of give her take on what she found about that. So Vonda, you can direct me around if you want me to click on anything or go anywhere else.
Yeah, so let's get started with the homepage. So like if you go to the where it says apps, right? So before we talk about the structure, right, and the layout of Kintone, the first thing that comes to mind, right, as I think about whenever you are going to adopt a new tool of any type, you have to be thinking about why you're even looking at a new tool. So where like if I think about what they talk about, like as you know, this is for collaborative teams. So that the first and foremost thing is to ask yourself, or to ask the question is, what's meant by collaboration? Because collaboration means one thing to engineering teams, but it might mean something else to a product development team. It might be something else to a project team, right? That has a combination of technical roles, you know, knowledge workers, business analysts, product managers, or whatever. So for me, right, when I go to look at any tool, at any platform, the first thing I'm going to ask, you know, either the chief strategist or the technical officer or, you know, CTO or whatever, is what is it that you're trying to do? What is the way that you want to operate? Because before you even think about, right, going out to, you know, examine or procure a bunch of different tools, what are you using now and how's it working? So if I think about, you know, a lot of startups and smaller companies that are using Google Suite, you can do a lot of collaboration. You can be using, you know, a bigger enterprise program like, you know, Office 365, and doing a lot of collaboration. And so that first piece, I think, where you enter the conversation is, what are you doing now? What's your work, right? And if you have systems and things that aren't working, have you examined that? So let's presuppose that those questions have already been answered, right? And the strategist and the technical person and the CEO or the founder said, we definitely know that we want to use something that's more tailored or more customizable, or something that we can, you know, create specifically for ourselves. That's where I think Kintone definitely has the value. But so when you first get to this first page, the thing I think is really interesting, and the thing that I liked, was that they do have that technology where you can learn as you are setting up, right? So like it says, let's set up your apps together. So that's a really good tool as an individual person. If I'm trying to say, okay, based on my individual work, here's what I need, right? So maybe if I have a team and we're trying to collaborate, then maybe we will use the shared to dos, right?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe we will do some, you know, meeting management, right? Based on the type of work that we do. So the one thing that I like is that, you know, you can use their tutorial, right, to set up your specific workspace. However, if that's not done in a way where, as a team, right, we're working together to determine how we're going to use this, then at the very beginning we could have problems, right?
Oh yeah.
Because unless we're all decided that we're going to use the share to do this, we're going to use, you know, project tracking in this way, right? Then Vijay is going to be using it one way, Neil's going to be using it another way, and Bond is going to be using it in a different way. So at the very foundation, my number one recommendation, whether we're talking about Kintone or any other app, right, is that the organization understands what capabilities they need, they agree on those capabilities, and then they start to plan and move accordingly. So I just want to kick it off with that, and then you know, let's just get into it.
Yeah, and I would say, just to bring off that, this particular app, Kintone, is not one you just want to throw in front of people and just say good luck.
Right.
It's definitely one where if you already have like you know what your expense tracking app needs to look like, you know what your projects you want to look like, and you just need that fully customizable full control of everything, then maybe Kintone's a good place for you, but not for someone just to say, hey, this does stuff, figure out how to do stuff with Kintone. That's not a good fit.
And that's what I have found happens. So I've been at large companies where we brought in big, giant, amazing enterprise softwares that do all kind of cool stuff, right?
Yeah.
But if you don't have any idea around the specific benefits that you want to get from that particular product, then you could be all over the place with it, right? And I think this is a perfect example of that.
Yep. Absolutely. Vijay, what do you think? Any thoughts about who would benefit most in that sense?
I've been looking at this product from perspective of how would startups use this product. And if you really look at most startups, there are people who are falling into three different camps at the moment. There are people who are using the Slack, and I'm just gonna figure out my way around whatever else ancillary products are going to be required. So could be a to-do list, could be a collaborative tool, could be a real-time communication tool. So people basically find all the what we call as digital workplace as a concept model. So it's not all tightly integrated, but there are many apps basically doing, each app is really, really good at what it does. And then there are folks who are basically using the G Suite, like Wanda was basically saying. And G Suite covers a significant bunch of what most companies would require. And then there is the new setup which is coming in, where a lot of startups are basically moving to the Microsoft Teams stack, right? And that is quite powerful because on the larger end, they basically have the whole SharePoint server, which basically helps you give scale for large enterprises. At the same time, for smaller companies, the Office 365 plus the Teams package is significantly, I think it's powerful enough for most teams to be doing what they're doing. I'm trying to figure out from this, when I was going through this thing, is this going to be an alternative for what a company that is actually looking at Slack would do? How is this doing something that Slack is not doing really well? So that's where I was coming from, and I absolutely agree with what Wanda was saying that when you're introducing a digital workplace, I think there are two parts to it. One is what is it going to take to onboard people into it? Because in every tool, there has been the problem of you add people and you keep inviting them and you keep reminding them, and that goes on for a while. And then there is a second part of like after signing up, do they log in? Right? If they don't log in, is there, it essentially becomes a ghost town of, everybody's accounts are created and you're getting billed for it, but nobody's really using it. So I think from that point of view, I think this I don't know. I would probably say about a 5 out of 10 from a perspective of a tech startup, basically finding this a tool to be a very strong fit for what they're trying to do. But there seem to be some certain use cases where I think this tool makes a brilliant fit. What I realized was that everything in this app seems to be there is a large database at the end in fact in somewhere, right? So more or less every app that you open up, it basically says enter fields of data. So it's essentially
Mm-hmm.
categorizing and nicely creating sets of data that you can basically like cross connect with each other to basically get some sort of a business intelligence and workflow going on top of that. I do think that the workplace tag is a little bit of a misnomer for what is being, like Neil, the definition of will this be your hub of work? I don't see that happening because there is no one point where I can basically see my entire data. I'm not sure whether I'll be able to get intelligence out of it. If I want to create custom dashboards and all those things, would I be able to do that? Will the entire organization be able to live around this with this at the center of the ecosystem? I'm not exactly sure about that. Yeah, so
Yeah.
that's where I would.
Yeah, Vonda, go ahead.
Yeah, so to your point, as you're talking, right? So I was thinking everything that you're saying. And so some of the stuff that I was writing down, like even a couple of days ago, was if you think about the capabilities in here, right? So document library, you can do shipping, you can do expense reports, blah blah blah. If you're already using, right, another tool set, right, that does the basic stuff, right? Inventory management, file sharing. It's hard to imagine transitioning, right, from
Yeah.
something to this. Now, if me being a new CEO, right, I have a startup, right? I only have 2 employees. It's not really that serious for me right now, right? But I'm using the Google Suite. So when I was looking, right, going through Kintone, I was trying to actually think of use cases, right, for my
Mhm.
own way and what it would be. So even when the one of the things about it, like the fact that you can make your own custom apps, right, from Excel and stuff. So I was trying to figure out if I could make something custom that would give me my particular data sets, right?
Hmm.
So to your point, right, there's all these fields, right, that they offer where you can say, okay, I want to track this data, that data. But if you're not the data scientist, right, or the data analyst, right, how do you even know what are those things that you want to start to do that? So in this app, in this section here, I tried to create, right, a new app from Excel. And I was trying to use it wasn't even a big thing. It was like 4 or 5 columns, maybe like 60 rows or whatever.
Hmm.
And I was having a lot of trouble importing it. Now, maybe it's because I'm using a Mac and, I was using Google Sheets and then I had to download it to Excel and then try to upload. So once you start getting into 3 steps to make something happen and then all the conversions, export to import, and then that's when you start getting frustrated, right? To Vijay's point, that's when you're saying, okay, do I really want to keep on clicking around and spending time? So I think a thing that is worthy of the conversation is really thinking about why would you leave whatever tool set you're using? How does this add to it? Or do you think about it in a replacement replacement way?
Yeah, I think someone who, like we said, if they kind of already have, if you're already using another specialty app for any of this stuff, for to
Hmm.
dos, for minutes of meetings, for expense reports, it's probably better than what you're going to get here in Kintone. So the advantage that I would see here is that, well, this is just going to be one place for everything, and you're going to force everyone to come in and do everything here, and that way all of your data is connected without having to worry about a lot of APIs and things to put together. And one thing I
Mhm.
do like is these packs that they have. So packs would be like a set of maybe 3 or 4 or 5 different apps that are all already kind of interconnected. So like the recruiting pack would come with, let's see if they says something about your sales and or your putting up a new job posting. Yeah, here we go. Job vacancies, applicant
Job
tracking,
postings. Hmm.
kind of all together, and it would be able to link those. So I think people who are having trouble linking various databases might find this attractive, because then all the databases would just be in one place and be able to be there. But again, like whoever's going to build that, you got to have somebody that really knows what they're doing, to do that.
Yeah.
They don't have to be an engineer perhaps, but they have to really know how technology works.
They need to be able to see things through as a process. I think that's what's most important. Like the data that you're collecting in application tracking, are you collecting the complete set of data that the next stage would require? So I think that's one part to it. If you're a small business and if you basically don't want to pay another $20 per user for a full-fledged CRM suite, for example, I think a pack like this would actually make a lot of sense. So in the sense you're just paying a complete pack. You're in $24 per user. You're pretty much getting everything that you possibly would want. So I think from that perspective, I think it's a great thing. My one of my beefs with this would be that you're going to startups basically go through stages, right? And they go through that very quickly. In almost 18 months, every company looks entirely different in terms of the kind of processes and things like that they do.
Yeah.
So they're going to outgrow a system like this very quickly. So let's say that I'm a startup and I'm using a tool like this, and maybe I'm using the very basic CRM package here. Would you give me the opportunity to basically migrate my data out to maybe the Zoho CRM or one of the bigger CRMs out there, so that I can seamlessly transition? If I have to download all of it as CSV files and basically have to upload it, and I think that is going to be so, and I think this is going to be a key metric that I'm going to validate most of these tools by is to like, what is their options in terms of data migration? Like, can they actually seamlessly allow that so that the end user organization is not basically locked and, tied hostage to one platform?
And with that, right, that, and I didn't think we were going to necessarily get into it in today's discussion a lot, but then that brings up the privacy, right, data protection and all of those things,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
So if I'm using Kintone and I've put all my CRM stuff in there, and it's now, December 2022, and now instead of, 9 clients, I have 90 clients as an example, right? And so what does that look like? What is that process? And does my $24 per user per month, is that going to pay for me getting, being able to take my data, right, and put it into another, maybe bigger or robust system? What do the
Right.
ownership, kind of packages look like? And are the data privacy, data sharing, what is all of that? So to me, like, it kind of goes back to, you know, when I think about everything from the lens of change, right? Because that's who I am. I'm been a change manager since the beginning of my career. I'm going to be a change manager until I die, right? And so I think about it from the standpoint of, if I'm going to uh change anything, right? Whether I'm going to be using something new or something different, it's still part of what I have to do consistently. What's the pain of this change, right? If I have something that I'm using now, right? What is it going to look like if it's 50 to 100 people to move into something else? Am I only going to use it for very specific requirements, right? And very specific capabilities, because the other stuff I'm using works, right? You always hear people say, well, if something is not broken, don't fix it. People are resistant to change because if they feel that the current process and technology and tools are working for them, when you try to introduce something new, you have to give people the rationale and the reason and the with them, right? The what's in it for me, as to why they should stop doing it their way and start doing it a new way.
Yep.
So you would need to say, well, you've been creating, running your CRM this way, and what normally takes you 20 minutes, if you spend 5 minutes setting up these three things on Kintone, now that 20 minutes is only going to take you 5 minutes. Well, now that's a selling point, right? But what's that transition look like? And is that change, right, going to be led, right, within that organization? Or is it something like, I know a lot of companies did this when Slack first came out. They just said, okay, well, we just going to get it and let people organically start using it with
Yeah.
no plan, right? And some companies like Slack went amok, right? And you even hear, like, on tech news, companies trying to shut down different Slack channels and stuff because employees are talking about things that they don't want them to talk about. Well, if you think at the beginning of any implementation, if you tell people what we're doing, why we're doing it, when we're doing it, and what it means for you, then you have a little more, control about the outcome, and how those things get used.
I do have some good news for you. That's never going to happen in Kintone because there is no chat channel here.
Yeah, there's no chat. Let's do look a little bit at this what they will call collaboration. Now, within these apps, I think if you bring one up, you do have the ability to. Well, that's a record that it takes you to a different one.
You can put a comment.
Yeah, you can put a comment here, so that there's some kind of in which I'm always a fan of, like, have the conversation where the work is. So I like that. That's cool. If we come back though, like just kind of more ad hoc discussions, they're wanting to have in these threads. So we can have discussions here, but it's definitely not chat based, which has its things that it's about. But it's I mean, not bad, but I don't think any like startup is necessarily going to be interested in it. And most people who are used, or if you're already addicted to something like Slack, you're going to hate it. So yeah.
And everybody
Yeah.
is addicted to stuff, right?
Yep.
Everybody has their thing that they're addicted to. And why would you get off of your thing to use a new thing.
So yeah, this was somebody who feels like, man, Slack is just too chaotic and all of our processes are everywhere. And they're like a control freak and need to really bring everything in. They want everyone to use the same thing. Like they might find this appealing, but good luck trying to get everyone else to come over onto it.
Or they might go back to emails. There are a lot of the email clients these days are starting to get extremely threaded. You can basically start adding tasks on, convert threads into tasks and all those things. So I think the lines are basically starting to get blurry as to where is work getting done. Um, so yeah, I think if somebody really does not like the whole chattery atmosphere that Slack brings in, they might swing the completely different way, not necessarily come here.
Yeah. Here's one of one of the strange features I found was in this one in the space. You can actually block users from joining or leaving the space and following or unfollowing threads. How's that?
I thought that was very strange. And I was trying to understand, okay, if it's my company, if we're all, who would I block? And then I thought maybe if it was the HR stuff, right? Because maybe you can
Yeah, that makes
block
sense.
HR data. But that was really the only thing I could think about. Um, like it kind of seemed a little strange, but
This
yeah.
probably happens when a company gets acquired. They just go and enable that saying that you're not leaving.
Yeah, the
You're
leaving,
coming along with us.
the joining part is one thing, but the leaving is another one. Like you can never leave. You are
You can
stuck here
never leave.
forever.
That makes no
What
sense.
do, you can check out anytime you like, but you
That's
can
true.
never leave.
That's right. Maybe that's a cultural thing. Who knows? So other things that we liked about this. I mean, I like that in the sense that, like, you can create from the home. You can create a space, and the space has all of your discussions. So it's like a team thing. You have your announcements. You have all the apps you would need just for your team. Like I wish that was there in some other products that I've seen.
Mm.
That is nice. I do like that. And the apps themselves, like here's my thing with Kintone. I feel like Kintone is the perfect example of the engineering team that says, we built that feature. Like we have that feature. We did it all. Everything you asked for, we made. But there was just like not a lot of like foresight into what work was going to look like. And it just feels like highly like almost like over engineered or in the sense of where it's like it does, it's not like I'm looking for additional features. I just don't like using it that much.
And you know what? Maybe a thought is this. Maybe because, I thought to your point about it being cultural, right? So, right? So here in the States, right? We who all work in technology or who use technology, we've become addicted, right, to certain ways of working. Whether
Yep.
it's, on Slack, whether it's, text message or, email, whatever. Everybody's become accustomed to it. Maybe in a situation or an environment where you don't really have a choice, right? So you're coming into a startup, right? And there's only 2 or 3 employees, right? And they're like, hey, this is what we're using. Then I could really see pulling out the specific apps, to fit the functionality and scope of your work. But that's, I think, starting from nothing, right?
Yeah.
So you right where you're deciding, hey, I'm going to use this, and everybody that comes aboard, we're going to use it. But then that requires, once again, that planning and that, strategic collaboration in terms of how we're going to use it. So when I always tell people that I'm like the middleman between the technical teams and the business, right? Between how it works and what we need it for, right? And so when you think about a person that's using it, it's like, well, what do I need it for? Versus the engineer mindset that to your point, that says, well, it can do anything because I built it to do X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
just because it can do all these things, it doesn't mean I needed to do all that, right? So, like when it comes to applicant tracking, well, I'm a small company. I'm outsourcing that, right? So I have people sending me resumes and whatever. So I don't have to track any of that, basically, right? So I think it's bringing together the thought process around how I want to utilize technology to help my business achieve the goals I'm trying to achieve, and looking at that in conjunction with, is this application, is this platform something that's going to help me do that?
Yeah.
Mm.
Good. I mean, I think we've kind of kicked this one enough. Kintone is a nice product, and again, I think the problem I feel with it is that it looks like it's done. Like there's no clear roadmap of how they're going to make this better. It looks like, hey, we finished the specs, the scope is over. This is the product. So that's a little bit of a fear I have, is like, even if you started using it, I don't know how much better it's going to get in certain ways.
The thing that you also notice with most of these digital workplace tools is that each one of these companies are essentially coming from a place which used to be its strength, and now they're kind of expanding themselves into a digital workplace, just like how Gmail started off with email, and now they're basically calling themselves as a digital workspace.
Yeah.
I think this organization has predominantly come from a workflow perspective. I mean, that's where I think even if you look at the text on their website, they're basically saying that they're a workflow collaboration tool. But I don't see the undertone of workflow, that process oriented, that part so much so in this whole tool either. Even though, yeah, I mean, there are a lot of forms.
Yeah,
And
like you can do the forms, and one thing that is nice about it is that you can convert something
Create.
from a project to a process very quickly. And it's, I mean, the processes aren't so robust. Like it just is like, hey, here's the steps that are there, and you can build your own automations like here. So the fact that you can just with a click, I can change it from a project to a process is appealing. There's limitations, but that is nice. You were going to say something, Vonda?
Yeah, I mean, I like that part of it too. But yeah, so it's the workflow of whose work though. So for me, so when I thought about it, so even on if you go back to the front where it gives you the sections, right? And it says, so I could add like the text, I could add the date, I could add different things. But what would be the workflow of what type of thing? So if it's a project, if I'm doing like an agile kind of project, or like most companies use hybrid, it's not hardly any pure, agile stuff happening out here, even though we've been talking about agile for 20 years. There The workflows and the processes, I think, are going to be specific to that company, but more so specific to that unit or how that person is working, right? So there was HR flows, there's sales flows, right? There's uh even under like technology, there was only three things. It was help desk, incident management, and security incident management. So when we were earlier a couple weeks ago, when we were kind of going back and forth, and I'm like, I feel like the app's not done. Like it should be more stuff. So to that point, right, of what is the work once it keeps workflows, they start and they end, right? But they still develop, and you need to know what will be the next piece, and each thing has to be contingent. And that's one thing that I kind of thought was missing, because I don't feel like these workflows would get me to from point A to point D or E in any different way, and I'd have to figure all that out, right? And I'd have to have my team of the people that I'm working with, right? We'd have to agree on the workflow, and we'd have to agree on the right fields. And so it seems like it's collaborative in terms of how it's going to function, but it also would have to be collaborative in the way you set it up, to even think about how are we going to use it as an organization. And in this time of, people making quick decisions quickly, people transitioning from, office hybrid to more digital workplace uh, uh, scenarios and operations, it's a lot that goes into it. And so that's where some of the concerns are.
Sure.
I have this question as well, to like, who is the owner of a platform like this within the organization? Like, if it's an employee engagement platform, I know that the HR team is responsible for it. If it is a work management tool, then maybe the chief of staff or the COO is responsible for it. If it's a workflow team, then it's usually not even an organization level person, but it's a business unit head who's usually responsible for it. But I'm not exactly sure who's the owner of a platform like this, because it's quite holistic in that you're essentially asking the entire organization to come in, but who's going to curate this garden so that it doesn't run havoc into wild forest, so to speak.
Yep. Like even here, I added this applicant tracking and job vacancies earlier, but when I added it now it's doubled up. So which one am I supposed to use? Like as the administrator, I have to be the one that goes in there and says, well, don't use this one. This is a test environment or something like that. That's pretty difficult to do.
Yeah.
Good.
And I think the titles, just one last thing, like the titles aren't sexy. The titles aren't going to make people click on them, right? Who's going to click on something called a shared to-do list? Nobody's going to
I'm
click
fairly
on
certain
that.
you can edit it probably to something nice. Like click this one, not that one.
I'm sure you can.
Can.
Well, that's something that even Vijay and I were talking about. Like maybe there's actually some goodness in there because like this app makes me want to just get in, do my work, and get out. Like I don't want to spend too much time here. And you know what? To be honest, that's not a terrible thing. Like it's not bad to just say, hey, I just want to get in, do my expense report, and leave. I don't want to be distracted by thinking about all the other conversations I'm missing out on and other things I'm going to be a part of. Maybe if I keep that somewhere separate, this is just come in here, do work, do boring work, and then leave. Not a bad pitch, I think.
For certain organizations, this product makes a lot of sense. Like for example, if you are an organization which basically manages a lot of spreadsheets, like where there is so much data in terms of vendors and customers coming in, so maybe you're an e-commerce site who in the backend need to process all your the orders that are coming in, and you need to basically collaborate with everybody else to basically make sure that happens. This is a great platform which basically is a spreadsheet with a little bit of intelligence built on top of it to tie everything together, right? But the sad part is that Airtable is essentially going exactly in that same direction. So if you're going to get a startup to choose between Airtable versus Kintone, I don't know what the decision would be.
Yeah. True. All right, Vonda, final thoughts from you?
Yeah, so my final thought is that for Kintone or any app, any new platform, software system that you're thinking about bringing in, the first and foremost is you have to understand, right, your own business and have some ideas around where you're planning to go, right, within the next 12, 18, 24 months, right? So to Vijay's point, right, around startups and companies, we change our strategy, right? We change our focus and we do things. And so we want to have tools that are going to be able to support that. So, my advice is know what you're doing and have some idea of what you want, right, from your tools beforehand, and then look at what does that mean when you're going to actually try to implement that. So if you have a team of 50 people but everybody's already having a good time using Trello or using something else, right, then you're going to need to think through that. And so as the leader, the best advice is to really make sure you understand what a transformation like this is going to do for not only your team, for your organization, but how it's going to impact your work on an everyday basis. And so change leadership is the key, right, for a digital transformation of any type. And that really starts with asking yourself questions and making sure that you're understanding, what the functions and features that you even need in order to use and adopt those tools successfully.
Yeah. Vijay, from you?
Oh, I don't have anything else to add. She tied it all very quite nicely with the bow.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, I think we've said it. Kintone is a fully built tool. It looks like it has. I think it met the specs exactly what somebody told it to do. I doubt to see many companies that are looking for a fresh take are going to enjoy using it. But again, if you need something that's just going to be boring and will help you to get your work done and get out, then it might be the right tool. It is a little bit on the expensive side, I would say, if you're looking at especially a larger organization. But yeah, who knows? Somebody likes it. They do have a lot of clients, so somebody's enjoying it. Very good. All right, let me close this one down. And yeah, well, it's been fun chatting with you guys to do our first review, and we look forward to doing some new ones. So thanks a lot for being on here, and we look forward to doing our next one soon.
Absolutely. Thanks. It was fun. Looking forward to it.